Hey guys, this is Subotai Khan, and welcome to part 1 on my video series discussing offense versus defense in Hellish Quart. This is another one of my myth-busting series that I'm planning on starting. It's to disprove this idea that defense is objectively superior to offense and that it's a safer, better approach. I'm going to show you that essentially offense and defense are both viable. You got to follow the principles of the game, of course. So you can't mindlessly attack, you can't mindlessly defend either. That's my main argument. And there's many approaches you can take to the game. That's really the main thing I'm going to demonstrate here. And this is a fight I had against Oak here in the fourth Thursday round robin. And here we see a case where I actually do try counter striking because I feel it's a better option. I'm sort of struggling to initiate against Oak. I'm struggling to get a whole lot done, and it doesn't work. The fact is, Oak gets initiative and he wins. I can't counter him, and he's able to keep pressure. He's able to utilize offense and defense together as well. So we're going to see that here, and I'm just going to go through this fight as we go. So this is fairly recent, so I have an idea of what happens and watched it over already. And you can see already we're sort of feeling each other out. We're not going in immediately. I go for an attack. It doesn't quite work. His riposte doesn't work either. And then I shoot in for a stab immediately. And you see right there, I see an opportunity and I shoot in. There's an attack. And I get the first point. And here, my auto guard just completely fails. Oak steps to the side and cuts me. You could say I was trying to initiate, but at the same time he was throwing an attack. So like sometimes there is a distinction between initiating first and attacking first as well that is worth noting. And there it was a counter strike. And again, I'm not trying to say that counter striking doesn't work. It was kind of laggy, but he did a counter strike. That's not my point at all. My point is just that initiating first and attacking first can also work equally well. It's all about how you do it, and we're going to see both examples. That's just a straight up double. In that case, you can't really say offense or defense is superior, right? It's just if you can get an afterblow or not, you're still in the game. If you land an afterblow, excuse me. So there's a good kill by Oak. And you can see I'm already struggling. I am trying to initiate and it's failing, but we're going to see here Oak does the same thing back to me because I'm losing the fight. But here also we see an initiation that works in my part. You get a stab and then a cut and a push. Oak was crippled by my attacks, and so that made for an easy kill once I got those hits. Oak is a very tough opponent with Yazik lately. Good sniping by Oak, unfortunately no kill for him. He goes for a corkscrew thrust, but you can see I immediately reply, and there's a thrust. And there's a natural flow of the fight, of course, right? So it's not as if you can abandon defense and get away with it. I think this might be part of what people are getting at, that there's this natural back and forth to the fight. But even then, I would say the fact that this back and forth exists means that initiating absolutely can work. And here, actually, you can see me trying to initiate and it fails. I throw a bad thrust, and I don't think it's the fact that I initiated that was the problem. It's the fact that I initiated with the wrong move. And that is a distinction that people have to keep in mind as well, I think. So anyway, Oak tries to initiate with corkscrew thrust. You can see he's just harassing me a lot. I go on the offensive though, seeing an opportunity, and I cut him. And I keep going. And you can see I actually did a wrong move there. That was not a case of offense failing so much as it was, again, me doing a wrong move. And Oak is just punishing those mistakes. But you're going to see here, when I start trying to turtle up, it just doesn't work. So, and there's a parry riposte, granted, but again, that's how the fight naturally flows in a game where you can just parry and get killed in one go. That's sometimes how it happens. And the fact that it's possible is not a bad thing. But you can see it's a bit of back and forth now, but I'm sort of on the back foot now because I'm trying to fence very cleanly at this point and play a bit more defensively. I think that's the better approach. You can see Oak initiated there, so let's go back a bit. This is one of the examples I'm talking about. I'm back in this corner. Oak throws a cut. It's not quite in range, but what he does with that is he provokes a riposte from me. I am trying to cut down and hit his arm. I don't manage that though. I actually don't have the reach. I messed up and I get cut. This is something you can do, and this is a principle many of you could try when you're on the offense. You know, you attack with that second intention, or you just punish a mistake that your opponent makes. You provoke, you force your opponent against the wall. You use the advantage you have, knowing that you won that round, and you can keep up the pressure. And there he hits the arm. And as you can see, I'm not winning this fight. In fact, I don't win this fight, and that's not the point, right? The point is Oak is showing us here how you can make offense work. And you can see here, like at this point, we're both attacking, right? So, you know, it's sort of a toss up, but I'm really trying to make something happen. There, I get a beautiful cut, punishing mistakes. I think that's why some people might say offense is like inferior. It's because if you make a mistake, it can get punished so fast. But that's the key. You can also make a mistake on the defense, as we saw earlier. So, you know, mistakes can happen both ways. And you can see the riposte again was punished. If we go back, kind of a long video, so it's a little difficult to do that, but I'm going to show plenty of examples in this, of course, and you can see Oak initiated. It happened really fast, but Oak was actually the one to attack first. Oak goes for a corkscrew thrust, and actually, I'm kind of surprised it didn't hit, but given the angle of the thrust, this makes sense. In fact, in real life, you could probably grab this blade, but, you know, the grappling system is not that complex. It actually kind of looks like he's trying to. That's a cool shot, but not the point. The point is, I go for an immediate riposte. If counter striking was objectively superior, you know, Oak would not have been able to do this. He was able to provoke a response with his attack and win. So this is the thing. You can attack by throwing a cut to get a kill right away, or you can attack to provoke your opponent into action, or you can continue harassing them and make it a mental game. There's many ways to apply pressure, many ways to go on the offensive, and you just gotta stick with the principles of the game that I think I discussed in the longsword video. And here you can see I immediately go to the side, cut the head, and cut him. Yeah, his auto guard was just completely useless against that because I spaced it right. And so I'm doing actually quite well here. I think I am a bit overly critical of my performance here. I'm not generally a fan of it, but maybe I'm just my own worst critic. It's possibly just that Oak is doing amazing here. But anyway, there's a good sidestep cut. I think Oak takes it here. I forget exactly how this went. Yes, so he cuts the leg. We were both attacking, so you know you can't really say which way. Yeah, exactly. We were just both desperate to get that kill shot, and Oak crippled me, I would say, with that initial hit, and that allowed him to win. So, yeah, I think in this fight you saw examples of both. I'll see you at the next example. This is not the end of the video yet. I'm going to show you a bunch more. Okay, so this is the second fight I want to go through against Tao in Venator's 5 to go tourney. This is a point where I actually go on the offense. I'm the one seizing initiative in this fight, and it works even against two characters who are known for having really good guards. Still known for that, I would say. Even, I mean, Zero was nerfed a little bit regarding the weak of the blade, but I don't think that change. Yeah, that change was not in place when this fight happened. But either way, he still has a pretty good guard. We'll get right into it right now. You can see I move back and forth, and yeah, of course, my first initiation doesn't work. I was rather reckless. I didn't respect my opponent's blade, and that's the key here. You gotta respect your opponent's blade as you go in. You can't just go in mindlessly. This is a game where, you know, one misstep and you're dead. I saw an opportunity to shoot in there, though. That was a really good example. And Tao was still able to hit me. I could have been more careful, but nonetheless, it worked. I was in his face where his weapon was a bit less effective. And here again, I see a mistake, so I shoot in, kill him. You could argue Tao is the one initiating there, but still, you know, my point is both work. It's not that only one approach works. There's many ways to approach this game, and the ultimate key is that you have to defend yourself at all times, though. I think a point worth mentioning is that defense and offense can be related. They're together. You have to abide by the principles of the game and keep yourself safe even as you attack. But it goes both ways. As you defend, you have to find some way to get initiative. Otherwise, you're in a lot of trouble. And you can see there, I just immediately hit him. He didn't try to initiate or anything. He tried to catch my attack, and it didn't work. I simply hit him. And you gotta find the correct angles. You gotta aim where your opponent's sword isn't. You gotta time it well. And if you do, you find that your blows can easily get through at times. And here you can see I do a retreat cut. I go for a bunch of attacks. Tao is actually backing away from many of those. If we go back, it was really a poorly set up attack on my part. But that's the thing. Attacking can fail, but equally defending can fail, as we saw there. Uh, the principles of fencing aren't absolutely that. But you can see how my cuts are kind of out of range. It's really hard to do it for such a long video, but you can see there how I was out of range. There was no way I was going to be able to hit him. Tao backs away. That one might have hit his arm, but he was able to defend it. But the fact that he keeps retreating is actually what's keeping him safe. He can't just stand there and guard. He does have to move. And that was a really good defense there. Retreat cut there is a big mistake on my part. The whole maintaining the attack was a mistake too. You do have to have a degree of patience in this game. That is a simple reality of using live blades that can kill you in one go. Sometimes you do have to be a bit patient. But here you can see I very much have initiative here. Tao did tag me on the way in, but then I'm able to just shoot in and get a hit. And it's maintaining this aggression that allows me to win the fight. I punish any mistake Tao makes very brutally, and I maintain the offensive. Here we both just attacked into each other. It was a slugging match. Tao came out on top, right? Honestly, Tao was probably better because he attacked. If he just stood there and tried to defend, I would have seized the opportunity most likely. And so Tao is trying to be very defensive here. I shoot in and hit his head, though. I see an opportunity. I take it. And Tao is a very good Zera. It's not like he's clueless of Zera whatsoever. That's quite the contrary. So that was a really good win on my part. I don't usually play Laszlo, and yet still I was able to make offense work quite well. And it was by utilizing the principles of the game, still making sure I keep myself safe. I'm not just attacking for the sake of attacking. There's a plan to my attacks, right? And eventually it works. And so let's go to this next round here. Hang on. Again, it's sort of hard to get a lock on. Hopefully we get it here. All right. There are some pauses here, but they do get resolved. And that's because I'm lagging. I think Tao was too. And even so, my strategy remains largely the same. The style between Samuel and Sarah is actually somewhat similar. You can find some similarities despite the different weapon. So my approach largely stays the same. Tao there with a good snap cut to my head, though, showing us that you can also counter attacks in turn, right? So it sort of goes both ways. Intelligent defense and intelligent attack are both important. And so here we're kind of feeling each other out, I would say. Also dealing with the lag. There's some lag we're both sort of struggling with at this point. So, and there I was just simply out of range. There was no chance of hitting him. But I go for a push. I keep the offense going even after that failed attack, and it works. Is that always the best thing to do? No, you gotta consider the situation you're in, right? And the characters you're fighting with. I know Laszlo's better in the pocket, so I focus on staying in the pocket in that exchange. And yeah, here we're seeing the first instance of catastrophic lag, resulting in a pause, but we do carry on. I just want to be sure I don't skip anything. I think we start pretty soon, but anyway, I hope my point's clear, right? Like, there's certain principles of the game you must follow. You must parry incoming attacks. You must be ready to receive them. There's all these sorts of things, but a lot of people say the best way to fight is to counterattack and only counterattack. Well, somebody has to attack at some point, right? And the fact is, it's very possible to be the first one to attack and to gain success. And sometimes that first attack is not the one you're trying to hit with. Sometimes you're harassing, sometimes you're feinting, and that's the thing. There's not. I don't do a lot of feinting. Uh, Certainly not with Laszlo because I'm less experienced with him, right? But that's a whole nother can of worms, so to speak, right? The idea that you can feint an attack, you can trick your opponent or trick your opponent's auto guard. So the opponent might not even be tricked by what you're doing, but because you've done a feint, the auto guard gets confused, and then if the opponent doesn't respond to that, knowing that their auto guard is compromised, then they could be in trouble. If you saw another instance of lag there, and that's just a double. We both attacked each other, right? And honestly, Tao was the first to initiate, but that doesn't matter. The fact is, if I didn't attack back, I would have been lost, right? Looking at it from that perspective. Tao tried the same thing to secure a double, maybe, but I follow up my attack with another attack, and it works. And again, Tao is behind. He can't just turtle up. Samuel's guard is the best in the game, I dare say. And it's not that it doesn't work. It certainly works. You can see it work here. But the thing is, if Tao is unable to set up an attack, if he is constantly defending and is unable to respond to me, then he's not winning the fight. He's losing the fight. And here he is doing a good job, but I find a way around. You can see how I go for a stab around his guard, the can opener, as it's often called. That's the stab that I did. And it's very good at doing just that, getting past guards. That's just a double. If Tau was a bit too late on that, I would have gotten another point. You could argue he could have defended and riposted, but I would have. But you could also argue then I could parry that riposte. Then you can get an exchange. And I plan to show a fight showcasing this as well. The whole exchange thing, like when both fighters are attacking flawlessly and defending flawlessly. That's where you can get these exchanges where you can't really say attacking or defending is better. They're both needed in that situation and they're both working together. So I hope to showcase a fight like that too. I think I'll pick my fight against Kexoid because that really shows the flow really well. There's others as well. After that, I don't know what I'll do. I'll try not to keep it excessive in length though. I'm just sort of filming these in chunks, so we'll work through it. Okay, so we had another instance of lag. There shouldn't be many more, if any. I'm just making sure Tao is good. I think he's trying to defend, or he just got control back. But he's definitely able to move now. I go in for an attack, and I follow it up. Bit of a second intention thing. Of course, Tao riposted and hit me, so that could have been a little bit bad, but the fact is, I think being defensive was more risky there because, especially if the gaps I have in my defense and the lag that I was dealing with, actually made attacking more attractive to me. Because here's the thing people forget: yes, if you have delay, attacking is going to be delayed, but so is your follow up to your defense, your riposte. And here we're seeing that as well, actually. Like, Tao could have killed me there. Like, I'll say that straight up. But his delay is actually making defending very difficult. And yes, he's able to fend off some of these attacks thanks to Samuel's guard, but he can't do it forever. And that was actually a good cut to the head there. I was very reckless there. And so you see the difference between reckless attack and smart attack. And how when you're not smart about it, it can fail. But when you see a moment, right, your opponent's faltering or you see a gap in the defense and you just go for it. I'm not sure how much I was lagging there. It's also possible I was lagging and I was just like, all right, we got to go for it, you know? just brainless rush. That could have been the case too, but either way, I got the kill. That's a fact, and I was attacking. So again, the point is not that attacking is superior. Defense is fundamental to any type of fighting in any game, any situation, martial arts, you name it. Defending is absolutely crucial, especially in a game where you could die in one go. It was crucial in Bushido Blade, it's crucial in Jedi Academy, just to name games where that are similar in that if you take a hit, you're in a lot of trouble, right? It's still absolutely crucial in those ones, but to say attacking is not viable is also quite false, right? And you could look at games like Mountain Blade, where you can only defend on a few axes and attack on a few axes, so you have way less options. You could argue defense is even better in that game than it is in Hellish Quart as a result. You don't have as many options. There's like shield bashing, kicking, there's attacking at different speeds. There's a bunch of nuances to the system, sure, but fundamentally you can only attack from four directions, and those directions can be defended. Each of those four directions can be completely nullified by the player's reaction time. And then there's nothing you can do, potentially, if you mess it up. But at the same time, there's moments in Mountain Blade where you can just attack, attack, attack. And if you have initiative, you can get surprising results, especially in Napoleonic Wars. That was quite a joy when you have a bayonet and you're just spinning around and stabbing, right? And I know these games aren't completely the same, but the fact is there's gaps in the defense that's been demonstrated time and time again. And so I hope to demonstrate the flow of the fight, the natural flow of the fight in the next section of this video. Okay, so this is the next part of the video. I'm just doing this in chunks because my time is somewhat limited, but that's how it goes. You're gonna see this in one video as one edit. I'm not doing this super professionally, but oh well. That's not the point. Kexoid against me in a saber-only tourney. We see examples of both working in this fight. We will see some initiations fail, like this one right here. Parry riposte. That sometimes happens. You have to attack intelligently, and I'm not disputing the fact that this is a risk when you attack, but I'm saying that it's also risky to defend, and we're going to see examples of both working here. For every example of a defensive playstyle working, I think you can find examples of an offensive playstyle working as well, as long as they are rooted in the concepts of the game. And especially when you see these exchanges happen, like it doesn't matter who initiated first. We're both defending, riposting, defending, riposting. And then it's a matter of who makes a mistake. It's not a matter of who attacked first. It's a matter of who played the most skillfully, who maintained his nerve, stuff like that, right? That's what those exchanges often come down to. Not who attacked first, not simple concepts like this. And we got to keep in mind that attack and defense can be done together as well, like I was arguing earlier. And you can see I defend, but then I push. I could have just defended, riposted, defended, riposted, but I instead broke up the rhythm and went for an attack. And that got a kill. And then I will go straight for the cut here when I see an opportunity. Kexoid was not even initiating. And that's the thing. Some people, I think, when they say I can't initiate and I just get countered, if you're not in range, if your attack is poorly thought out, if you're just completely out of measure, that's not an initiation. And that doesn't prove that initiation is objectively inferior. That just proves that you messed it up, right? And that same can go for defense too. You can mess up a defense just as you can mess up an attack. And so here we're sort of feeling each other and we both go for an attack at the same time. That happens too. And the fact that I'm provoking Kexoid into attacking like this should tell you that there are gaps in his defense, and he knows there's gaps in his defense. This is why he's trying to initiate back at me. He needs to. If he turtles, if he focuses only on defense, he will immediately start having problems. And that's another double, but again, you can see how Kexoid's attack was threatening me there. I couldn't necessarily just stand there and parry it. He found a good angle. And there, we were both in some danger there, attacking the hands. And you can see the parry riposte, parry riposte. Let's go back. That was beautiful. We have a lot of these happen in the game. We saw another one that was really cool. But you can see I initiate, then he attacks back. There is obviously the danger that he cuts me, but if I raise my guard up to defend, it's not necessarily a disadvantage then, is it? And I can use that to harass him, or we can keep the flow going back and forth, back and forth. If really skilled players go at it, it can look beautiful. And that's one of the beauties of this game, I think. And there is a natural flow to the fight that this fight, I think, demonstrates. Above most, really. It's definitely a highlight for both of us, I would say. And that's the other thing I think I should articulate, right? When you attack, you have to realize you don't have infinite action points, so to speak, right? You at most tend to get one or two attacks, then you have to defend. That's not an implication that defense is superior, it's an implication that defense is something you need to keep in mind as you move, right? And attack is also something you have to keep in mind because if you don't ever attack, well, you're not threatening your opponent. There, I shoot in and hit him immediately, right? Like he wasn't ready for it, so I hit him. And so the argument's obviously offense is not superior then if you don't have infinite action points, but you spend action points, so to speak, if you want to use a gaming term, tempo on defense as well. Sometimes you lose initiative by defending, and that can be decisive in your loss. So a bunch of attacks there. Kexoi gets through. See, like it sort of goes both ways here. And Kexoik says another attack first. Look at him attacking first sometimes, like you can see how he's forced to in many ways. And sometimes that's to my advantage, sometimes it's to his advantage. There was an interesting thing here where I attacked and I think somehow defended that thrust. It was interesting. I'm surprised it didn't hit the arm, but you can see how attack and defense can work together just like that. And then I get a cut and another cut. And it wasn't and the problem there wasn't that any of us initiated. It was just the attacks that were chosen and the way they interacted. I don't think I was trying to cut to defend exactly. I was just throwing a cut at the right time, but nonetheless, it worked. And this is a really fast-paced fight, so I can't really have any trouble commentating all of this. But and you can see how choosing that right moment got me the kill, and it cuts pretty quickly. To the next one is a bit of a music video, so I'm just not playing the music. And again, an attack, well timed, instant kill. So we're seeing a good mix of both, I think. And obviously, I'm still keeping in mind the principles of the game. I'm keeping my guard up when I'm attacking. I'm sure to choose good moments. I'm not just throwing it for the sake of throwing it. There's a plan behind my attacks most of the time. Sometimes there isn't, of course. I'm not perfect. This probably goes for Kexoid too, but there you go. That was a good cut to the hand as I say that. You know, and that would have hit if I was too close. That attack right there is very good at getting past auto guards, and that attack by Kexoid also hit me. So again, we're seeing offense working very well. Initiation, you could say. Kexoid goes for a cut. Of course, the push, parries that. It's a bit annoying. It's unfortunate that was a thing in the game. It's no longer a thing in the game, actually, which is great. But push still works as a guard breaker if your opponent's too passive, and that's another tool you have. You can do things like punch, you can do things like push still. There's many options. You can choose angles, you can choose an attack suited to your opponent's guard to get past. And here you can see a good moment to go in, and I immediately capitalize. Upward cut there by Kexway, and that would have possibly connected if I wasn't careful. Interesting slow motion here. But I did get a hit, and then I go for it. In that case, Kexoy was tired, so that doesn't really prove much, but, The fact is, even when I am defending, I'm still threatening my opponent, And there was a good example of offensive play, but, this idea that you can just turtle up and you're completely safe, it's not rooted in the concepts of the game, and it it's a very oversimplistic way of looking at the game, I think. And there's a good back and forth. I mean, nobody's at an advantage or disadvantage at this point because we're both on point with our defense and attack. We're both quite evenly matched. And so the fact that one of us is initiating, the other isn't, is not giving any of us an advantage or disadvantage in that case, right? And then we both go for an attack at the same time, but Laszlo does better in the trade, so I won. But There's another example of attacking winning, right? Sometimes you can take an attack. There's another example. I take a little bit of an attack, but I see that opportunity, so I go for it. And so to say defense doesn't work, there's an attack, but I retreat and do another attack. Second intention move. Retreat cut. Very deadly with Laszlo. And you can attack actually while retreating too. It's kind of funny how that works. And there's another good attack. Taking the hand off. I think Kexway gets some in too. And see, again, I overwhelm his guard, and then I get another hit. That's sometimes a thing you can do in this game. The sword can't be everywhere at once, and if you use a character who's really quick, like Laszlo, you can get some good results. And it honestly goes for a lot of characters. A lot of characters have quick moves like this. And good sniping by Kexoid. You know, Kexoid did a really good job here, I gotta say. Like, as proud as I am of this victory, because it's the first time I used Laszlo seriously in a tournament. Like, Kexoid put up a fight. He forced me to abandon my main. We're not seeing that round in this segment, but nonetheless, I demonstrated really well here with Laszlo, I think. The idea that you can attack and still succeed as long as you do it intelligently. And I go for a stab, but it's kind of prodding. It's not necessarily going for that kill shot. And you can see Kexoid's on the back foot. He's in a lot of trouble here if he messes up. He doesn't, but then I catch him as he moves in just a little bit. His guard is still up, but I managed to snipe his arm. So, again, another example of offense working. You could say I was kind of on the defense in a way, but I threw a cut, so that's equally an attack. And perhaps this is where some people there's sort of a disconnect. It's where when I think of attacking, maybe I'm thinking of something slightly different sometimes, but I think still this idea that defense is just an objectively safer or better way to play is a bit wrong. Okay, so this is the HEMA tournament. Um, I am fighting Wrath at this point, and I think this fight demonstrates what I'm talking about really well, because I actually go on the offensive for most of this fight, and it works. And here it actually fails right in the opening. You can see that sometimes I was cutting out of measure is what happened. And perhaps cutting straight down on Samuel's guard is not always the best idea. So, but I'm dancing around a bit. I'm harassing him. I force a double. That's not ideal. But I'm sort of getting the rhythm, feeling him out. And there's a good thrust to cut. Sometimes I sacrifice that first flag, but I learn a lot from it, and then I work from there. It can be a bit risky. It can be. There's no doubt about it. But you can see how it's paying dividends right here for me. Already 3 points. Another point, he was using long guard. Guard was down. Went for the cut. Simply standing there and guarding is not always the best decision. That's a simple fact. And there's a thrust to the head, but it wasn't a very good one, so he gets the point. Which makes a lot of sense. But you can see how I'm pressuring him in a corner. I gotta be a bit careful sometimes, but it's one way of defeating Samuel. You get in his face, and there you can see I got right past his guard with the cut. And there's a thrust cut. Good. And then I change up the rhythm there, and I go for an upward cut. And that's not something you see very often from Alexander, and it worked really well. And so that's the thing. Some people also struggle with. They don't mix up their attacks. They just go with single piece attacks, so to speak. They don't go for more than one. Sometimes you gotta go for more than one. I was talking about action points earlier, but you gotta keep in mind you don't always have one. It's not turn based, you know, and that's one reason why defense is not just automatically superior. And Wrath is handling himself well here. He was adapting to what I was doing, getting him in the corner. He gets out of the corner, which was really good for him. But my plan remains the same. You can see that upward cut went past his guard and hit him. And he's using Samuel, a character who is known for having a really good guard. And yet, you can see how harassment and attacking him like this works quite well. And Samuel doesn't hit very hard sometimes, so especially in HEMA, you can sort of get in his face. But this is true for Sharp in my experience too. Samuel really struggles in this specific matchup. There's a hit. Push attempt on my part doesn't work, but you can see I keep up the pressure, and Wrath is still hit. After a false edge cut attempt, I try hitting the wrist. It's a good idea. It doesn't quite work, but I keep up the pressure again. I just wait for the opportunity to move in. Then I see him get really passive. And this is what I mean when I say being passive doesn't work. You're stuck in this corner. You're trying to defend. You're trying to turtle up. He fights quite well, actually, I will say. He does get a cut in. But you can see the fact that he's in the corner, the fact that he's trying to counter. He has no answer. He's trying to figure out what to do about my attack, and it works. The simple fact is, attacking in this case worked. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Alright, next one. This is me against Stuntman. Stuntman is an up-and-coming Isabella player. I decided to try and match him with Isabella, and it doesn't necessarily go well. Whoops. Let's mute that. Love your love your commentary, Venator, but we don't want to listen to that in the background. But do check the video out, guys. Check out Venator's channel. You can see it there. Alright, so Stuntman goes for a cut, and I get hit there. Push by Stuntman. You can see he goes with combos. This is a concept that I was sort of covering earlier, but just going for multiple attacks is sometimes a way to get around a guard. Sometimes as a second intention action, or just to brute force your way through. Maybe you're intending for that first one to hit, but if it doesn't, I've got a second one coming. And sometimes that messes up the opponent's instinct to parry riposte. A lot of people think simple parry riposte, like I'm actually trying to do here, is the easiest way to win the game, and it simply is much more complex than that. And Stuntman does a good job of showing aggressive play. Here I just force a double, and I'm not exactly proud of how I was doing there, but that is what it is. I'm more than happy to show my flaws as well. This is how we learn. You learn from watching both your losses and your wins. Your wins are also important too, and I'm not saying this to be narcissistic or anything. Learning from your wins shows you what you're doing well, and learning from your losses is showing what you're not doing so well, what mistakes you're making. And of course, you're going to see some counterattacks as well in this one. That's just a fundamental part of fencing as well. I think showing extreme examples would overstate my point, and it would be cherry picking. So I'm just sort of picking examples that I know really well. And here you can see an exchange. I mean, the result of that flag was not because someone initiated first and someone didn't. That was me getting a better position as our blades clashed. And so, okay, I'm doing quite well here, actually, I'd say, but Stuntman in good shape. And you can see I'm applying a lot of sort of passive pressure, moving back and forth. I do that with Alex a lot, and this is something I do with every character. It's a habit I picked up from him. Some good sidestepping by Stuntman. He's trying to get a better position, and you can see how I'm having to adjust to it. I can't just stand there and be defensive. I gotta be active. Stuntman going for a combo that could have worked. I was thankfully in the right range. I think he could have hit me if I was closer. And going for a stab, then a cut. You see how I follow it up and I provoke him. I don't think he meant to grab. I don't think grabbing was what he was trying to do, but the point was I provoked him and he panicked because of that attack. And you can see how the guard failed me there completely. Stuntman just bulldozed through. He didn't care. And again, we're seeing a mix of both. I go in for an attack. We sort of trade. It's messy. I thought I had a better position, but as you can see, that's not entirely true. And then Stuntman just goes for a thrust. Immediately. Immediately goes for a thrust. And there's another point. And that's another thing. Auto guard doesn't block everything. You have to keep in mind that thrusts are also a thing when you attack and when you're defending as well. So long guard sometimes is an advisable move. It can be tough. Sometimes auto guard on its own can do it too, but definitely long guard is the better way to go if you can do it, or some kind of counter thrust if you can land that really quick, or cut for that matter, if you're in the right range. cuts can beat down thrust too, so there is that. Stuntman goes for a combo. You can see it's very hard for me to just do the parry riposte. That's what I'm used to. But Stuntman's a bit newer. He's very aggressive though and very skilled in his own right, and he has a different approach to Isabella than I'm used to facing, and so it's throwing me off, and it's very close. Either one of us at this point can take it. I'm applying a lot of passive pressure. And yes, Stuntman is being a bit defensive here. I will acknowledge that. But when he needs to be, he shoots in and goes for the attack. And unfortunately, of course, I was ready for it this time, and so it did not work in his favor that time. But you can see how well Stuntman did all the same, right? To say one method, sorry, is inferior or superior, it's just not supported by the overwhelming, frankly, evidence that we have. We have overwhelming evidence that both methods are superior. That's the I know I keep repeating it. I'm a bit of a broken record, but that's that's the main point I'm trying to make. I don't know if I'll make more parts to this though, just FYI. This is kind of a long form video. But if new parts are needed, maybe I'll look at specific concepts, not just looking at matches, but just showing how offense can be the objectively like superior option in a situation, stuff like that. Something interesting theory to look at for sure. But we're gonna stick to just the one part for now and see what happens. And I hope this is instructional to people who are struggling with offense too, because I know that's been something some people are struggling with in the community. And given my recent success in tournaments and whatnot, I think there's definitely some things to be said about how effective this method can be. And I say this as someone who likes counter striking sometimes too. I will acknowledge I'm not always all about just aggression. I adjust my fighting style based on what my opponent's doing. Sometimes aggression is what you need to do, and sometimes I acknowledge you gotta be a bit more defensive. But turtling and sort of reckless attack that has no purpose, both of those are really bad ways to fight, and contrary to popular belief. And so as we watch this fight go on, I go through a thrust, and it does get countered, yep. And Stuntman goes for a cut, but you can see how he doesn't just turtle up, he follows it up. Nobody here is just, relying purely on auto guard. And I try to go for a thrust, I get a kill. I'm behind though. I'm not in a good spot. I felt pretty good, I think, after this thrust, but I'm not in a good spot by any means. And I keep challenging Stuntman's combos. That's the problem. I keep responding on impulse. And you could say, "Oh, if I'm patient, maybe I could maybe I could deal with them." Sometimes that's true. I will acknowledge that. But as we saw earlier, sometimes combos just get passed anyway, and sometimes if you try turtling up, it doesn't work. And I don't feel safe, being overly defensive, right? It just doesn't work. So if I do like a part three or part two, whatever, I think part three I might do more videos as well, like showing these fights. And here we're seeing Stuntman defending with a cut. That is a beautiful example of using both offense and defense in one go. And that is another thing that I think a lot of players could benefit from practicing. Like go to the lab and just practice against specific attacks. Practice the respond to that cut. Practice the respond to that thrust. And immediately hit your opponent in that same motion. It's especially doable with longswords. Longswords seem a bit better suited for that sort of thing, but you can do it with sabers. You can do it with rapiers as well. Actually, rapiers are really good at that as well. So, and here you can see Stuntman is a bit conservative. He's playing really smart. He wants that flag to be, he wants to easily win that flag, right? And so I'm taking advantage of that. You can see once he started sort of playing more conservatively, he started playing a bit more poorly, right? You can see how I've started climbing back up. And yes, I'm taking it a bit slow myself, but I'm applying pressure. I'm waiting for a good moment to go in, and I take it immediately. I don't turtle up. I move in and go for a cut. And there's a lot of tension in these moments, right? And there's a reason for that. Stuntman actually just rushes in. He initiated. He got the kill. That's a fact. Very well done by Stuntman in that fight. I did not expect the sudden attack there. It could have been anybody's, to be fair, but his rush attack was very convincing to the head, and he got it. Oh, sorry, I believe I skipped the flag. It's very easy to do when you got literally a 5 hour long video. And this will be the last one I think that I'll show. I I think the point's been made. I think I've evidenced my arguments plenty. This is a tie break, I believe. So we'll just examine this a little bit and call it there. Okay, Stuntman initiates, and he gets away with it. I try to respond to that initiation, I get hit. Could I have been patient and stayed in the fight? Yes, that was probably the right option there, I will admit. But nonetheless, you can see how offense can harass your opponent and provoke action. It's not a matter of one being superior to the other. You got to use both. I think you got to mesh them together. Use whichever one is better. And there, Stuntman initiating alongside me, and I did do well defending with those cuts. But you can see how I couldn't defend forever. That simply wasn't possible. And this is a tiebreak, so it's over at this point. Stuntman won. Congrats to Stuntman. Very good fight. But you can see that, like, if I just stood there and guarded, the outcome would have been the same. Under that barrage of attacks, Stuntman would have found a way in, and I would have been in trouble. So I hope the point I'm making is clear. Obviously, some players will find success being a bit more defensive than others, right? Some players naturally will lean a certain way, lean towards more offense, towards more defense, a mix of both. I like to do a mix of both. Um, yeah, it's a really complex game, I think, and that's something we have to acknowledge. We can't make simplistic arguments like defense is superior to offense, or even offense superior to defense, right? These things don't. These things just aren't true, and put simply, they are both fundamental parts of the game. I didn't even explore feints very much. There's a bunch of other things we can explore. Reach variation. If I'm fighting a rapier and I have a saber, obviously being defensive doesn't work. I have to get in. Yes, one of my goals might be to parry an attack first, then find a way to close in. But very often, initiating as the saber is actually what you want to do as well. It depends on what's going on. So, because you have to close in. If you don't close in, the simple fact is the rapier has the advantage, and being defensive just gives opportunities for the rapier to hit you. That's just one example of many. There's other things we can explore, but I'll leave it there. See you guys.